Ladies and gentlemen, Capital G here, coming to you live from isolation here in Kelowna. And hey, Flash is banned. That was a fun little announcement that came in a couple days ago. So yeah, that is one thing to look forward to once things get back to normal. No more Flash. I don't play competitive EDH. I know it's mostly in the competitive scene where it was causing a bit of an issue, but I've seen it a couple times at casual tables as well, and I wasn't really a fan, so bye. Anyways, with that little piece of news out of the way, let us move into our primary subject, and that is from Commander 2020, Kalamax, the Stormsire. Going into teamer colors on this one, a red, a blue, a green, and one generic mana gives us a legendary elemental dinosaur. Stegosaurus with lightning bolts. I can't argue with that art. Can't argue with its abilities either. Whenever you cast your first instant spell each turn, if Kalamax is tapped, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Also, whenever you copy an instant spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Kalamax. So, there are two routes you can really go with it. You can go combo, or you can go instant speed buff tribal. So we're seeing elements of both in this build. I'm going to start by showing off the combo. The linchpins to the combo is Ral, Storm Conduit. Swore the Stark Planeswalker, a red, a blue, 2 generic. It says here, whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Ral deals 1 damage to target opponent or Planeswalker. That's a pretty good synergy. That -2 when you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, you may copy the spell and you may choose new targets for the copy. Again, a sweet synergy. But why is the combo important? Well, just keep that first line of text in mind when I show you Fork. Or perhaps it's slightly easier to get your hands on Twin Cast. Both these spells do the same thing. Copy target instant or sorcery spell, you may choose new targets for the copy. So here's how the combo works. With Ral on the field, Kalamax tapped one way for any reason whatsoever. Assuming your opponents do not play an instant spell on your turn, you cast a cheap sorcery, doesn't really matter what it is, and then maintain priority, cast either Fork or Twin Cast, and copy your sorcery. Kalamax, if tapped, will trigger and copy the Twin Cast. That copy of Twin Cast will now target itself, its original form. So by doing that, you build up a nice little infinite loop where Twin Cast, the copy of Twin Cast makes another copy of Twin Cast, makes another copy of Twin Cast. And each time you're copying it, Ral's dealing you damage. And you kind of ping out your opponents that way, point by point by point. So yeah, that's definitely one way to do it. Even without Ral on the field, if you're attacking into someone, they don't really have a way of blocking, and they cast an instant targeting Kalamax, say a removal spell, you can actually Twin Cast that, get your copy from Kalamax, and do that same loop. But remember, every time you copy a spell, he gets +1/+1 counter. So make him as big as he needs to be, and then maybe finish off the loop with a counter spell of some sort. So yeah, lots of things to do with Kalamax. I definitely insist on getting Fork and Twin Cast for this deck if you want to build a Kalamax, because the possibilities are quite infinite with it. Let's see what else the deck has to offer. We'll start by showing off our other Planeswalkers. I am running Jaya Ballot here as a way to filter through cards. So triple red and 2, +1 for triple red mana that we can use to cast instant and sorcery spells. Or we can discard up to 3 cards and then draw that many cards. Don't see us getting to the -8. It'd be cool if we did, but I don't see us getting there. It's really, she's here mostly for this +1 ability, the second ability. Chandra is here for our -2. Chandra the Firebrand. When you cast your next instance or sorcery this turn, copy the spell, and we may choose new targets for the copy. If she manages to stick around, of course, we can use the +1 to poke away at our opponents a little bit, but the -2 is what brings Chandra the Firebrand to the dance. Our other instants and sorceries. Again, I was talking about going instant speed buff tribal, and this is another strategy you can use with Kalamax. Because remember, the spell that that Kalamax copies will give him a +1/+1 counter. So become immense. All of a sudden, we'll turn our Kalamax from a 4/4 into a 4, 10, 16, 17 power creature. Berserk. We can one-shot with Kalamax using Berserk. So, Kalamax will need at least one other point of power from somewhere in order to make this work. But out of the gate, let's say Kalamax is a 4/4, you swing, you cast Berserk. Berserk copies Kalamax copies a Berserk, so you have 2 Berserks on stack. The copy gives Kalamax the +1/+1 counter, so Kalamax is now 5. Berserk copy resolves, Kalamax goes to 10. Original copy of Berserk resolves, Kalamax goes to 20. So any other point of power, either before or after casting Berserk, can lead to a one-shot. Bolt Bend, change target of a target spell or ability of a single target, and it's only going to cost us 1 red. Because Kalamax just happens to have that 4 power. Brute Strength, +3/+1, and gains trample on the turn. We've got a couple of these in order to, get a quick buff, get some trample, get some damage through. Deflecting Swat, even better than Brute Strength, because as long as we have Kalamax on the field, this thing is free. Dig Through Time. Yes, it's an 8 mana instant, but we can delve away a few cards. Let's just look at our top 7 cards and keep the 2 best ones. And because it's an instant, if we manage to make it our first instant of the turn, we actually get to look at 14 cards, keeping the best 4. Fierce Guardianship, free counterspell, a free negate, as long as Kalamax is out there. Harrow, instant speed land fetch. Now the cost is a green, 2 generic, and we have to sacrifice a land. Normally gets us 2 lands, but if our Kalamax is tapped, we actually get 4 lands without any additional costs. Keep Safe, nice little counter spell this one. A blue and a generic. Counter spell that targets a permanent we control, and we get to draw a card. So a counter spell that replaces itself, I am all in for. Long-term plans, a way to tutor for our Ralzeric. This is what it's here for, because Ralzeric is kind of hard to tutor for in these colors. Negate, counter non-creature spell. Another nice thing about Kalamax that if he's tapped and somebody plays a spell that you want to counter, well, you play a counter spell, you actually have 2 counter spells on the stack. If your opponent wants to defend whatever it is they're doing, they need 2 counter spells to protect it. Mystical Tutor. Generally going to use this to go get our Fork or our Twin Cast. Nexus of Fate. Hey, it's an instant. We can take 2 extra turns if our Kalamax is tapped. Once and Future. Instant speed way to recur cards from our graveyard. We can put 1 card from our graveyard to our hand and potentially put a second on top of our library. Or if we happen to get the triple green adamant requirement, we can return 2 cards from our graveyard to our hand twice. Predator Strike, +3/+3 in trample. Run Amok does the same thing but in red. Repeated Reverberation, great synergy here. When you cast your next instance or instant spell, cast a sorcery spell, or activate a loyalty ability this turn, copy it twice. And we can choose new targets for those copies. So even without Kalamax on the field, if you have enough mana, Repeated Reverberation is actually Repeated Reverberation, and then forking something will be just enough to get us the combo off. Return to nature. Destroys an artifact, destroys an enchantment, or exiles a card from a graveyard. Pretty handy stuff. Wilt also destroys an artifact or enchantment, but this cycles. So yep, the trend of 2 mana green instants that replace Naturalize, that continues. Another counter spell here with Stubborn Denial. 1 blue, counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 1. Oh wait, Kalamax has 4 power. Counter that spell. Counter a non-creature spell for 1 blue mana. Yes. Swan Song counters an enchantment, instant, or sorcery spell for 1 blue mana. They get a 2/2 bird. Tail's End. Counter an activated ability, triggered ability, or legendary spell. So yeah, keep Mirren off the field a little longer. Or if somebody cycles a Decree of Annihilation, counter that. Especially with that new cycling commander, it is a very legit possibility that someone will try to cycle away a Decree of Annihilation. So keep an eye out for that. Team Rattle Rage, because double strike is good. Thrill of Possibility, much like Harrow. It's a red, a generic, and we have to discard 1 card. But if it's our first instant for the turn, we actually get to draw 4 cards rather than just 2. Veil of Summer, draw a card if an opponent has cast a blue or black spell. Our opponents are likely playing blue or black, so why not somebody cast the spell of that color? Draw 1 or 2 cards pretty easy from this, and protect our board from those colors. And Wild Ricochet, red 2, choose new targets for target instant or sorcery spell, then copy the spell and choose new targets for the copy. So if somebody plays a spell that you like, Wild Ricochet, and have some fun with that. We also have 1 instant slash sorcery. Oh yes, Heaven and Earth. We're not playing a lot of creatures, so having a way to, clear out flyers. 1 green and X, deal X damage to each creature with flying at instant speed. Yes, please. And then afterwards, going red X, deal X damage to each creature without flying, casting the sorcery from the graveyard. Gives us a bit of flexibility. Other sorceries we're playing with: Artful Dodge to grant unblockable twice. Thank you, flashback. Deep Analysis to let us draw 2 cards twice. Thank you, flashback. Farseek lets us get a Plains, Island, Swamp, or Mountain card. Gamble. This is another way to toot out our Ral Zarek, but it is high risk. High risk, high reward. 1 red mana to go get our Ral. Hopefully we don't end up discarding him randomly, so make sure you have a good grip of cards when you cast this. Merchant Scroll goes to get a blue instance card, likely twin cast. Ranger's Path gets 2 more forest cards for us. Reckless Charge. Target creature gets +3/0 and gains haste, and it also flashes back. Seems like an odd include, but I did want to have a cheap sorcery handy in case we needed to flash cards back. Sorry, not flash cards back, but twin cast ourselves rather than twin casting off an opponent's card. And Stealth Mission. 2 +1/+1 counters on Kalamax and making him unblockable for the turn. I'm not playing a lot of other creatures here, so let's show you some of my creatures. Lord Drakis. For Is It, we only care about the mutate. We're not going to cast him. We only care about the mutate. For Is It, we mutate Lord Drakis onto Kalamax underneath because we don't want to replace the power toughness. And whenever this creature mutates, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So 2 mana, get something back from our yard. Yes, please. Narumeha has flash, lets us copy an instant or sorcery spell that we control. Rattleclaw Mystic. Mana Dork that taps for all of our colors, so absolutely. It has a neat little morph thing going on, but honestly, we're never going to play him for his morph. At least I don't see a reason to do so. Risen Reef. When this comes down, or another elemental comes down. By the way, Kalamax is an elemental, just saying. But when he comes down, or Kalamax maybe comes down later, we get to look at the top card of our library. If it's a land, it hits the battlefield. If it's not, it goes into our hand. Good value here. Snapcaster Mage, a rare instance of a big money card, me deliberately choosing a big money card for the deck. Because, hey, flashing back one of our instants and sorcery seems like a really, really good idea. Torrential Gearhulk lets us recast one of our instants from our graveyard at no mana cost. Not to mention a good 5/6. Never a bad thing to have a 5/6 on the field. And Wood Elves lets us get a forest. And artifacts, of course, we're going to wrap with Arcane Signet, Commander's Sphere, Felwar Stone will give us most of our colors, Soul Ring, take some of the pressure off the generic mana costs. And we're playing the full suite of Talismans in order to help ramp us up. Briber's Purse, this is here to help us make sure Kalamax does not get blocked by something that could defeat it in combat. Icecrown Scepter, we do have a lot of instances that cost 2 or less, so why not throw it on the Scepter? It says here you may copy the exile card. If you do, you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So it copies and casts the copy. That means it hits both Kalamax triggers. Really, really effective card, a little risky, especially if there is some other artifact removal on the table. So play with caution, but it is super effective. Swiftfoot Boots for the Hexproof and Haste. I don't want the Shroud because I want to be able to target Kalamax, so no Shroud granting abilities here. And Twinning Staff. If we would copy a spell one or more times, instead copy it that many times plus an additional time. So the Kalamax trigger can copy a spell, the Icecrown Scepter can copy a spell, the Twin Cast, the Repeated Reverberation, all of those can copy our spells additional times, and the Twinning Staff will add one more copy to the stack. And I did not look at enchantments yet, so I'll show you a few ways to tap Kalamax without going into combat. Cryptolith Right will tap for a mana. Let's Kalamax tap for mana, which is awesome because then we can, use Kalamax to pay for a sorcery and then fire off the Twin Cast combo. Hardcover, another way to tap our Kalamax. We throw this onto Kalamax, and then all of a sudden we can, tap him to draw a card and discard a card. Quicksilver Dagger, we can deal a damage to an opponent and we can draw a card. And Shark Typhoon, this is sort of our plan B. It's a 6-mana enchantment, does nothing if you cast it, but after that, whenever we cast a non-creature spell, we get an XX blue shark creature token with flying. We can also cycle this away for a blue, a generic, and X to get an XX blue shark here and now if we need to do so. For our mana base, we're playing the Shocks because basic land types. We're playing Cathedral of War. Kalamax is the only creature that's really attacking in our deck, so an early Cathedral of War gives us that +1/+1 boost that we need to get the early knockout with a Berserk. Evolving Wilds, Fabled Passage, and Terramorphic Expanse are all here. Running 9 forests. We're running the Frontier Biovac. Comes into play tap, it gives us all our colors. Hard to argue that. Even better though, the Triome. I love the Triome cycle. The thing that really makes a Triome stand out are the fact that they have the basic land types. The cycling, take it or leave it. The basic land types are what brings us to the dance. All of a sudden, hey, I'm going to go search for a forest. One of them is the Triome. My mana's fixed. 8 mountains, 7 islands. Playing the Guild Mage's Forum. Another way to get an early +1/+1 counter on our commander. Mystic Sanctuary, if we happen to have 3 or more other islands, when we play this late game, we can get one of our instants or sorceries back. I'm not super sold on it, but figured it's worth a try here. Playing the Bicycle Land Shelter Thicket, because it is a forest, we can go get it. Steam Vents, of course. Stomping Ground. And Survivor's Encampment, a land that lets us tap an untapped creature we control to add 1 mana of any color to our mana pool. So the Survivor's Encampment is another way for us to tap Kalamax without going to combat. And that's what I have. I scratch built this one. I did not study the deck list that he comes with. So this is a nice little scratch build experiment. I think this is going to be a fun little card to play with. Am I getting the C20 decks? Not straight away. Got to get back to work first, and I have to wait for that opportunity to take place. So first priority is get back to work. Until then, just gonna fantasy build and see what decks I can come up with some of these new cards. So yeah, Ikoria coming out soon. C20 coming out soon. We don't have the paper ones yet, so at least we have the cockatrice here to help us put some lists together and see what we want to do with it. Anyways, I hope you all liked my take on Kalamax. Let me know what you think. Are you gonna go all in on the instant speed power toughness boost? Are you gonna go all in on the combo aspect with the Ral Storm Conduit? I thought about putting in Storm cards, but Storm cards don't count copies. So, for example, Grape Shot would not work in this deck as is, because Grape Shot will not count the repeated fork copies. Ral does. It's the rare exception, and that's why we have Ral here. But yeah, combo base or turn sideways and play a bunch of instant space. Let me know what you think, which way you're going to go with your builds, and I will talk to you all again next time.